the sources are, of course, the Envirothon website, which has the study guide, which has numerous references for range. One of the things I want to do over the next year is consolidate that information into more of a study guide, similar to what you've got for the national study guide for the special topic, which is range. But that's one of those things that, since this is not part of my, it's related to my real job, but it's not my real job, so sometimes that doesn't take priorities. I am Nadine Bishop. I work for NRCS. I'm the State Range Management Specialist for NRCS, and I am also representing Society for Range Management Nebraska section as I'm working with this range Envirothon topic. I'm the primary test writer. I do have a couple of people that assist me with the writing the tests, but I do primarily the test writing. References, in addition to the Envirothon website, one of the most important ones is that Nebraska Range Judging Handbook that I handed out. And there are two places you can reach that. One is the Extension Publication website, which periodically gets changed and revamped. So the Nebraska section, SRM, will always have a link to the most current version of that publication. Another reference that is very helpful, especially because it explains the different monitoring methods that we do on rangeland and how to do those methods, is the BLM sampling vegetation attributes publication. It has all of the monitoring methods that we as an agency and the Forest Service and BLM use on rangeland on a regular basis. We may have other things we use in specific situations, but it has how to do line point intercept. It has how to do a number of other sampling methods. Another one, prescribed burning is a big topic. I know several of the speakers have talked about prescribed burning. It's something that is beginning to take off as a accepted practice in Nebraska, and so some of the things that the students need to know about prescribed burning on range is the benefits, maybe some of the drawbacks, how prescribed burns work as far as the fire triangle, and things to be concerned about when you're doing prescribed burning. In the extension publication, UNL's does a really good job of covering that. Oklahoma State has a humongous library of prescribed burning information that if your students are interested in learning more about that. Another one is for rangeland health, is interpreting indicators of rangeland health, which is available at that reference. And if you need to have this slideshow sent to you, email me at my email address, and I can send it to you, so you don't have to write down all these sites right now. But rangeland health, it's a complicated process, but the students should learn about what we measure with rangeland health, the three attributes, which are soil and site stability, hydrologic function, and biotic integrity, and the fact that we use 17 indicators to measure this, and the main ones to measure each of those three elements. I would not, on a contest, expect them to do a rangeland health determination because it is quite complicated, but just to know the basics about rangeland health. Some things that are critical to know, the extent of rangeland in Nebraska, what percentage of our land area is rangeland, and for the national contest in the western U.S., what vegetation types we have in Nebraska, and by that I mean the map that I handed out that has the prairie types and where they're located. Things that might be on especially the state contest would be what prairie type are we located in this location. Characteristics of rangeland vegetation, life form, is it a grass-like form or shrub? Growth form, is it rhizomatous, bunch grass? Lifespan, annual, biennial, perennial. The origin, native or introduced. Season of growth, warm season, cool season, and is it poisonous? Now, On the contests, I usually don't have a lot of plant ID, but I will have things like a plant flagged in, is this a native plant? Is this a cool season? Or is this a warm season? Those types of things. There's a little exception to that, and I'll get in that in a little bit, but there's so much you can cover in the range topic in Envirothon. I don't want them to get bogged down in a lot of plant ID to the detriment of all the other principles that we have with that. Ecological sites, that is something that in the regional contest, I might describe the situation as far as the soils and topography and depth to water table, all those all those properties, and ask them what ecological site am I describing. You can use the range judging handbook. We do have a lot more ecological sites in Nebraska than are in that handbook, but those are the ones that they'd be tested on. So, like for example, a shallow site, has the rock within a certain depth of the soil surface, and I'm not going to give you a percent because the range judging handbook has a more definite definition, and in real life that will depend on where you are in the state. But so I might, when we have the contest, I might plot out an area and say, what is the ecological site here? I'll have a hole dug, I'll have acid there, and they need to be able to identify that site. There are 11 sites, I believe it is, in the range judging handbook, so it isn't that extensive to know the characteristics of those ecological sites. Other critical items to know are what is plant succession, and I believe Rachel brought that up, and what are state and transition models. What is the philosophy of ecosystem change? Using state and transition models and succession, there'll be questions about that. The role of fire in ecosystems might ask, what is the fire return interval in this location at a state contest? And we'll go to that map in a little bit that shows, well, let's see if we can do it right now. See if this will work. Come on. So this tells you the estimated fire return interval for any place in the United States. So most of Nebraska is in that 6 to 8 year fire return interval. So from an ecological standpoint, that would tell us that to maintain the prairie in a prairie state instead of converting to a shrubland or woodland, we would either need to have fire that frequently or have something else in your management to control the woody species. Stocking rates. I'll give information about stocking rates, and they'll need to calculate either how many animals can be run or how many acres we need, or whether the stocking rate needs to be increased or decreased, and we'll go through that in a little bit. And then information about range management practices. There might be some questions about range seeding and water development, brush management, weed control, prescribed fire, and different grazing systems. Most of that you can get from the range judging handbook or some of the other references that I've given, or some of the other information that's on the Envirothon site. So here is the vegetation types in Nebraska map, which you have. One common, I've had some discussions with some of the test checkers about the Nebraska sandhills and whether it's tall grass prairie or mixed grass prairie, but according to the information on the UNL prairie type site of Nebraska, it is mixed grass prairie. We have short grass prairie in this part of Nebraska, tall grass prairie through here, and mixed grass prairie, sand sage prairie in the southwest. So we do have quite a bit of diversity in our prairie types in the state. And this is the website that has that. Another good source is the Nebraska Legacy Project, which would tell you some of the biologically unique landscapes that we have in Nebraska. I would use this in a test for the state test, because if we were in a particular area and it was in a BUL, I would ask some questions about that biologically unique landscape. You can find information from the Nebraska Legacy Project. So for example, if we were having a contest at Niobrara State Park, this would be in the verdigris Bazille area. So it might look something like this. And in that bull description, it will tell you the rangeland stresses. So I might ask a question about what, the invasive species in this area are, and I would list several and combinations, and they would pick the correct one. Or what are some concerns for rangeland in this area, that sort of thing. So you can go to the Nebraska Legacy Plan and find that information that would help them with the state contest.
What was the Tier 1 plant species?
It's not threatened and endangered yet, but it is one it's kind of like a watch list. It's one that we're concerned about in that particular part of Nebraska. If there were federally listed species or state listed species, the Nebraska Legacy Plan would indicate those too. So that would be a potential question: is what are the endangered plant species in this area? So as I mentioned, ecological sites, they need to know some information about the sites, be able to identify potential sites at the contest. And so you can help them with narrowing it down by using Web Soil Survey. And I don't know if any of you have used Web Soil Survey, but we can go through it really quickly. I don't have that hyperlinked. Well, let's just go. Rather than look at slides of it, let's just go through it, because it is a pretty easy process. And it's pretty intuitive if you've So you go to the Start button, Start Web Soil Survey. And it's slow today. So you can, if you have an address, you can put that in, state and county, section, township, and range. I usually just pick the state, unless I actually know the legal description, the state and the county. And if we're looking at Niobrara State Park in our example, Knox County, and then hit view. And this brings up the entire county. And then we go to our area of interest, and you can either do it via rectangle or digitizing it out. And I did this yesterday and ended up with South Dakota in there, so with a rectangle, so I'm just going to digitize some stuff out for my area of interest. Nope, but I still didn't do it. So this gives me my area of interest. Then I can go to soil map. Oh, and okie dokie. And it brings up a soil map. Now, if I had a smaller area, this would be better. And it gives you what soils are present there. So let's just go ahead but for as far as the range portion is, if you go to Soil Data Explorer, and go to land classifications, you can go to ecological site name and hit view rating. And it will give you the ecological site map but more important for the purposes of this would be, it will tell you what ecological sites are present in that area. But I made a mistake, which a lot of people do. I forgot to change this to range site, so it was forage suitability groups, and that is, forage suitability group is how well is it suited to planting pasture. So I want to go ahead and view my rating again.
So if you're going to use this for the students, you would print out the pages that you wanted them to use?
Oh, yeah, if in the yes. Well, I'm just thinking as a study guide ahead, if you know you're going to be at Niobrara State Park, just digitize out that Niobrara State Park area, and then it will tell you what your possibilities are for your ecological sites there. So we might have a shallow, we might have a clayey, we might have a shallow to gravel, which is shallow, a loamy upland. So it gives you what possibilities would be. If I had gone to a smaller one, let's just do that right now. So I went to area of interest. I'm going to clear it because I know Niobrara State Park's about right in here.
For your job, do you use the soil survey book at all, or do you only use the website?
Actually, we use ArcGIS, and we have digitized layers in-house, which so it's real similar to Web Soil Survey, but
Never the book.
very rarely. And the reason we don't is because that is a point in time,
Which was a long time ago.
which was a long time ago, and there's been changes to the soils. Our ecological sites have been updated, our production ratings have been updated. So yeah, we do not, it's more of an art, it'll give you general information, but we may have newer and better and
So
more
the
up to
book's a
date.
waste of time. I used to teach the book
Yeah.
because they used to get tested on the book, and they can't read resource books. They're much better online.
Okay, yeah,
But if you want them to use the book, you actually have to show them how to use the book.
right, and
I'm going to
If
stop
you know-
teaching the book. If you're not using it in your real job.
I would use it in, I'd use Web Soil Survey because that is as close to what we use as you can get without having access to government
Yes.
employee websites. So yes, I would use Web Soil Survey.
Yeah, okay.
So now I honed in on this a little better. I'm going to do my soil map.
Do you still use like soil series names? Or do you use numbers? And my advantage, my big thing about using the book is they learn what a Kozad soil.
Right.
Soil, and in the Web Soil Survey, it's
It
8504.
It is, but if you look here, then it has 2118s and Innovel fine sand, and then you can click on that and go to more of the properties of it.
Oh, okay.
So it tells you, the landform and the profile, depth of water, all that sort of thing. So just getting to a digitized map is just the first step. Then you can get to the interpretations for that soil. Yeah, I've been around long enough. I still think, okay, an Innovel fine sand, that's an I whatever, and I have to convert. I don't know the numbers because the numbers don't mean anything to me. But having this map with the legend, it says it all because yeah.
So as we're training kids, let's say they would want to go into this kind of career.
Mm-hmm.
You're saying they need to know the numbers anyway, not the,
No, I'd say they need to know the map unit name, in the soil series, yeah.
okay.
Because this number, to be honest, has changed 4 times in the last 15 years. So this map unit name is not going to change. An Innovel fine sand is always going to be an Innovel fine sand. Or a Holdridge silt loam is always going to be a Holdridge silt loam. So the numbers are just because basically a convenience to put on the map, but this map unit name and the interpretations for that soil are what we use in our work on a daily basis. Okay, since I made that smaller, we'll go back to Soil Data Explorer.
Have you used this and downloaded like a paper copy of it? Because you can
Yep.
add your
Yep.
AOI to a shopping cart.
Yep.
There's no fee for it, but then you can get a whole printout of whatever you
Yep. And that printout looks like the start of a actual soil survey book, only it just has your area you're interested in. So you can either, let's just do this real quick, ecological site name. And we want this, range on site, view rating. So this area has three or four ecological sites, a shallow limey upland. So that way you can help them narrow down what they would see at a state contest, so they can study that a little more. And then what you were talking about, you can add this to your shopping cart.
Oh, and then they can name it like their home farm.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a paper copy of it, you don't have to go all the way back through all the.
Well, the only reason I was still teaching the book is because we've moved so far away from books, kids can't use like the glossary and find things, and that book's pretty complicated to find all this stuff in. But I don't really need to be teaching it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm ditching the book.
Yeah. I'd say just from experience of
Are you teaching the book?
people we have come in every day, teach them how to read a map. You know, even a county highway map, a topographic map, and a soils map, because that's, the kids come in as interns all the time, and we say, here, go out to this farm and look at this, and they can't even read a county highway map to get there. I mean, they want to plug their address into a phone. Well, I'm sorry, there's no street address for section 10, 15, 25. I mean, you got to know how to read a map to get there.
Where do you click on for the ecological site? Are you clicking on the view description or view rating?
Okay, so I went to Soil Data Explorer. I went to, on this particular one, it depends upon what you want. If I went to, let's go back here, Soil Data Explorer. Let's get there first. Let's go back to the way it would be. Yeah. Let's go back to soil map. And then soil data, go to Soil Data Explorer.
So you just keep saving it, whatever you.
It'll save your area of interest until you clear it, but then on your other items, see, I went to the suitabilities just to get the map, but if I wanted to know more, I'd go here. So suitabilities, land classifications, ecological site name, and then view. Where's that?
Under ecological site ID, don't you change the NRCS ones?
Yeah, change that.
Yeah, right there. Because that refers to pasture plantings, and this refers to rangeland site and view rating. Okay. And then if you wanted more information, but anyway, that would kind of, prep for what we might find there. Then the ecological site assessment will give you additional information. And let's just go to say a sandy. Oh, great. Some of them there. So this sub-irrigated, this would tell you the primary plants you would expect to have. So if I were going to ask them to ID any plants at the state contest, it would be the most common plants that you'd find on that site. So I might have them, I have big blue stem flagged, I might have little blue stem flagged, but or western wheatgrass, because those are the most common ones you'd find there. I'm not going to, for an Envirothon, have Wilcox's fall panic grass or Wilcox's panicum flagged for them to identify, because it's not one of the more common ones on those sites. But because in this area reed canary grass was listed as one of the invasives, that would be one that it would be a good idea for them to know, because it's important to the site, not in a good way. Okay. And then you can, if you don't want to have that whole shopping cart thing done, you can just print this out this way. Well, it's slow today. Cannot open. Well, anyway, so you can go to add your shopping cart. Okay, it probably won't let me do anything because of the pop-up blocker. But so if you were looking at a farm you were wanting them to look at for one of your ag classes, not just for Envirothon, you could pull up irrigated capability class, you could pull up prime farmland, you could pull up ecological sites. Add it to your shopping cart, and then it will put it all together with the soils map and all those maps, and you'd have a good thing for them to study. I mean, this is kind of off the topic of Envirothon, but while we're here, we might as well mention it. Okay. Darn it. Okay. So anyway, in my PowerPoint, I did have, just in case we weren't internet connected, just slides on how to get where you need to go to get that. So from Web Soil Survey, I had Niobrara State Park marked out. Of the sites that are in the Range Judging Handbook, these sites are possibilities. And in some places, our NRCS names are a little different than what we have in the handbook because each MLRA might have different names. So we could have a shallow site, we could have a loamy upland, which would be all of these sites, a clay. So there's 5 sites that they could be have in their contest. Other things to know about plants, I might have this plant flagged and ask if it's a legume. Or is this plant poisonous? And since those are both spring growing plants, depending on where we are, they could be possible. So if they know the characteristics of a legume flower, that would be good. And yes it is, and yes it is, and they're both legumes. So
there'll be pictures or photos
or well, if during the regional contests there would be pictures or photos.
Right.
At the state there would possibly be plants flagged. And we're looking at pure live seed versus bulk seed. And pure live seed takes into account the purity and germination of the seed to be planted. So if we need 2.6 pounds of pure live seed, we're never going to need 2.6 pounds because we never have seed that's 100% germination and 100% purity. So if this was our mixture and we needed 1 pound per acre of Big Blue, it was this purity and germination. You just well, and that sort of thing, you divide the 0.7 into 1 and then 0.8 into that, and so you need 1.79 bulk pounds. Sometimes the question will be if I need 2.6 pounds of bulk pure live seed pounds, and my bulk seed is 90% purity and 85% germination, how many pounds do I need? Usually we don't go into each species individually, but I just gave that as an example. And then a lot of times it'll be how many, if I'm going to seed so many acres to grass, how many bulk pounds should I have? So then you just take your bulk pounds needed times the acres needed. So monitoring the things that we're looking at, and monitoring the most common ones that we would use would be line point intercept, and then derivations of that with modified step point or 10-pin frame. These individuals are doing the line point intercept. On that we put out either a 50 or 100 or 150 foot tape. For the contest it'd probably be 50 feet just because of time. And so every 2 feet you would drop a pin and see if it hit a plant, or if it hit bare ground, or if it hit litter cover. And so things I would ask them to do would be, what's the percent bare ground, or what's the percent litter cover, what's the percent foliar cover. So foliar cover would be the living grass or standing dead. Litter is detached plant material, and we give them a leeway because It's 10 people can measure it and come within 10% of each other, and that's great if you come that close, just because of where your pin exactly drops. Modified step point is just a modification of that, where you have your little tripod looking thing and you walk so many steps and record so many, and then a predetermined number of steps. And the 10 pin frame is just it's like it says, it's a frame with 10 pins, and so you get 10 times the data from the same amount of points. The Daubenmeier frame, we don't use that very much anymore because it's a lot of guesswork to it, but that's divided out, and then you estimate percent cover by species within each little frame. The Robel pole is probably, that the time of year we are and the locations we usually are, we don't usually have them use it, but we might have the Robel pole out there and say, what do we use this to measure? Total production would be just clipping a designated plot and weighing that for total production, and then total forage production would take out the non-palatable, non-edible type of thing. So if you're looking for total forage production for cattle, total production would include the shrubs and the trees. Annual production, total forage production would not. And then plant census is a method where you take a 150-foot radius circle and record every plant you find in that and their relative abundance. So we use that a lot to evaluate things for pollinator habitat. How many pollinator plants do we have within that area? Another thing we might do is in a situation like this, if this were the landscape, the question might be, what management practices do we need to implement on this piece of ground? What would you say we need to implement here? Yeah, there's one obvious one, or two obvious ones. What was that?
Cedar.
Yep, cedar removal, so brush management, and possibly prescribed burning as a follow-up, because we do have a lot of little trees coming up in there too. Without knowing where the fences are and water development is, you really couldn't say you needed more fences or water development, but and the obvious management that needs to be done is cedar removal.
I don't know if this is the right place, Nadine, for this, but water development. Boy, I'm just not at all sold on the idea of dams. It's just about as cost efficient to drill a well and then do pipeline of water. And I know you got some bull with the range people. Please tell me.
And a lot of that depends on where you are in the state, because there's some places you can't get a well. But I agree, the water quality, water dependability, dams, 2012 showed that you can even be in far eastern Nebraska and have problems with dams.
Those cows just plain don't want to drink that
Yeah.
dam water.
Mm-hmm.
And I say dam water, too
Yeah.
respects.
Yep.
Because they follow that water terrible, and the way the calves coming off of pasture with dams as opposed to
Yeah.
having clean water, 50, 60, 75 pounds difference.
Wow. And you can kind of get around that. Not many people do it by fencing out the dam and then having a pipe out to put the water in a tank. But yeah, water quality is a huge issue with
Not just
dams.
quantity, but quality.
Yep.
Quality
Well,
maybe before quantity.
Absolutely. I would agree. One thing I wanted to bring up, I'm on a quest to let people realize eastern red cedar is becoming a big problem in Nebraska. The Cedar Literacy Project was introduced just a month ago by UNL, and it's got some really good information for what you can do for cedar, when is it a problem, and that sort of thing. So spread the word that this is some good information about something that I think is one of the biggest threats we have to our rangeland in Nebraska right now. So that's really all I had. If you I would take any questions that you had about the range section. Yeah.
On that monitoring slide, where do we go to get more information about those?
That one reference that I brought up, it's the sampling vegetation attributes. It's listed in the Envirothon on the website, but it does describe how to do those monitoring methods and a lot of others. Those are the ones that you can do quick enough that you could do it during a contest. So some of the other ones we wouldn't ever do in a contest, but it is there.